Welcome to the Heart of Healthcare podcast. I'm Halle Tecco.
I'm Michael Esquivel.
And I'm Steve Krause. And every Monday, we bring you the latest in healthcare innovation as we sit down with entrepreneurs and industry experts.
So buckle up and join us as we figure out how to improve healthcare for all. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Heart of Healthcare podcast. I'm Halle Tecco, and today I'm talking to leader John Mackey. You may know him as the longtime founder and CEO of Whole Foods, who sold the company to Amazon for nearly $14 billion in 2017, or for his best-selling books, Conscious Capitalism, Conscious Leadership, and more recently, The Whole Story, Adventures in Love, Life, and Capitalism. Now he's working on a new venture called Love.Life, which is a one-stop holistic health membership club. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
You are hoping to do for healthcare what Whole Foods did for grocery. I was actually born in a post-Whole Foods world. So tell me, what were supermarkets like before, and what exactly is it that you want to change about the healthcare experience?
Back in the day, when we first got started, this is back in the very late 70s, supermarkets were much smaller, and they didn't have much, they weren't stocking very much. They weren't very fresh foods oriented. They were mostly cans and boxes and a lot of processed foods. And we were just beginning to get to national distribution of produce and meat and things like that. That had not been the common way of doing things. We'd had a local agricultural economy for a long time. And I remember when I was a little boy, for example, you couldn't get fresh orange juice. It was a big deal when you could get fresh orange juice from Florida. They used to have big commercials about it. So it was a very different world. And then Walmart came along, and that really, when they started selling food, that really spooked the conventional supermarkets to try to cut their cost. And their stores got even more utilitarian. They got to be more warehouse-like. And so quality of service went down as they tried to cut labor back. That actually created a great opportunity for Whole Foods to sort of be the counter Walmart of selling really high quality stuff, more service, beautiful stores. And that allowed us to break out of sort of what I would call the hippie market, the counterculture market, which had been primarily our business until Walmart came along and scared the supermarkets. And then sort of middle class, and particularly middle class and upper middle class women who were looking for fresh produce and better service, even though our employees seemed kind of weird to them. The service was good, people were friendly, and then Whole Foods sort of took off from there. And so what happened, though, over time was that as we got more and more successful, the supermarkets began to pay more and more attention to Whole Foods, and they began to copy a lot of the things that we're doing, copied a lot of our fresh produce, began to copy some of our marketing strategies, made their stores more beautiful, upped their service. They decided it was easier to compete with Whole Foods and Walmart ultimately.
Yeah.
And so the food world changed, and Whole Foods had a huge impact on that changing over the last 50 years.
And now you're going to do that with healthcare. Where are we in healthcare in terms of how the market has developed compared to grocery?
I do think there's an opportunity in healthcare. I'm not going to be so bold as to say we're going to do for healthcare what we did for groceries, but that would certainly be the dream, the hope. Well, the problem with healthcare today is that there have been great medical advances over time. So we'll say that general anesthesia was a great advancement. Vaccinations were a great advancement. Antibiotics were a great advancement. We've made great advancements in surgery. So I don't want to completely trash the current healthcare system. But today, mostly what we're seeing that the infectious diseases don't really kill many people, COVID being a little temporary blip in that regard. It's mostly chronic diseases that are primarily dietary and lifestyle related. So heart disease is our leading killer, which is it's really a dietary lifestyle disease. Cancer, high correlations again with diet and lifestyle. Diabetes, obesity. I mean, America's 74% of Americans are overweight, and 44% now obese. So we obviously are eating too many calories. And so the current medical system basically manages symptoms of these chronic diseases. They have pharmaceutical drugs that they won't reverse the disease, but they may help you deal with the symptoms better. But then they have unexpected side effects. They aren't nutrients. They're drugs, they're toxins. And so then you need other pharmaceutical drugs to deal with the side effects of the drugs that you're taking to deal with other symptoms. And so many average Americans take multiple pharmaceutical drugs their entire adult life, and starting when they're children, really. And so that's not reversing things. We have a variety we've spent 19% of our gross domestic products, 18 to 19% now, on healthcare. And it's not making America healthier. We are sicker than we've ever been, arguably, from these chronic diseases. So the vision of Love.Life is to begin to reverse that. The dream is that we can avoid these chronic diseases and for a very, very long time, till the end of life. So extend the lifespan and extend the health span to really, I think the potential of both is several decades. And it starts with first getting the baseline. One of the great things about the technology we have today is it's easier. We have the test, so we can establish where people are at on their own health journey. Most people are not as healthy as they think they are. They just don't know because they don't do very much testing. If they do testing, the doctor has the data, and you don't really continue to have that data yourself, so you can't really measure your progress or decline over time. So the first point, lots of good testing, do the testing, and get your baseline established. And now we have wearables that are increasingly becoming important, things like Apple Watches, Oura Rings. Garmin has a variety of health devices. There's about 20 different devices that Love.Life can synchronize for you on the app. And so we can use that to measure things like physical exercise, sleep. There's a variety, your heart, if you have a AFib, it can be detected on something like an Apple Watch. And so we can download this information, combine it on our platform with our technology, and we can begin to get a pretty good idea where people are on their health journey. And then we can work with them, with a doctor and with a wellness coach, to help create a precision plan for them as an individual, to help them become the healthiest version of themselves. And I think that's potentially, over time, a revolution, that people will begin to take responsibility for their own health, knowing that there are things they can do to be healthier. And I'll give you one example how it changed my life. My Apple Watch, I stopped drinking almost any alcohol at all about 3 years ago. And it was because of my Apple Watch, because it measured my sleep. And I started tracking my sleep, and I noticed, wow, what is it? Why do I get a good night's sleep? And why don't I? And what are some of the reasons I don't get a good night's sleep? Well, I discovered, if I have a heavy exercise, I have a lot better sleep. If I exercise regularly, I have longer and deeper sleep as my body's trying to recover and rebuild itself. I also discovered that if I eat too much food or if I eat too late, that interferes with sleep. But the third thing really blew me away. Any consumption of any alcohol, even one beer or one glass of wine, and my deep sleep would go to 0, and my total sleep would drop about an hour. And so I did this over and over again. I did not want to give up drinking alcohol.
You had no choice. Your sleep depended on it.
Yes, but the choice I began to make was, would I rather have a good night's sleep, or would I rather have a glass of wine? And increasingly, until it's like, I'd rather sleep. Oh. And I discovered there are other alternatives to alcohol, and nobody knows. You can get a non-alcoholic beer or a mocktail or whatever, and people forget you're not even drinking. Yeah. So anyway, that's one example of how knowledge has changed my life for the better. But there's so many other possibilities there as well. Yeah.
I had a recent story very similar to yours, and I wear the Apple Watch and the Oura Ring, and I noticed that my sleep is better so one of the things that I do to help me kind of fall asleep and relax at night is I kind of close my eyes and I put in a podcast, not my own, someone else's voice. and I listen to stories. It'll be, something like This American Life, something like a gentle story, and that kind of helps me fall asleep. But I notice that my sleep is actually worse when I do that. And I think it's because once it's over, I have these AirPods in my ear and they're kind of uncomfortable, especially if I turn my head and, I take them out. And so it disrupts my sleep and I inevitably have a lower sleep score. So even if it takes me a little bit longer to fall asleep without any form of entertainment, I notice that once I do get to sleep, my total sleep score is much better.
That's interesting. So I do something similar. So here's a possible tip for you. So are you a side sleeper?
I am.
Okay. Well, so you can have, so I start out on my right side with just one AirPod in my left ear.
Yep.
And I'll listen to a book that I've already listened to before. So it's very familiar to me. Mm-hmm. And so that just gets me to stop thinking about whatever.
Yeah.
That,
the list of things that you need to do that you didn't
or things
get done.
that I didn't do, or things I need to do the next day.
Yeah.
And so then when I cycle that first cycle and I wake up, I can just pull that AirPod out and then I just go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So it sort of helps me get that initial start, as you say. But then I don't have both AirPods in, so it's very easy for me to sleep on my right side and just pull out if I wake up to go to the bathroom, or if I just wake up, I pull it out and go back to sleep. You might try that.
Yeah. I'm curious too, like how that would compare for you without because if you presumably took a little bit longer to fall asleep, but then you'd stay asleep.
Halle, you've given me a new experiment. I'm going to start this experiment tonight.
Right,
and I'm going to alternate nights and I'm going to see if what you say is true.
So we'll touch base in 90 days. So tell me more about Love.Life and if you see this as something that could potentially replace the existing relationship you would have with a PCP, right? So today, your primary care physician, you see them maybe 15 minutes once a year. And they're kind of that central point of testing and, your overall well-being. They'll remind you to get your vaccination, et cetera. Yeah. Is this something that you wouldn't need a PCP anymore if you belong to Love.Life?
That'd be your choice. You can certainly keep your primary care physician if you wanted to, but Love.Life has medical doctors on staff. So let me describe a Love.Life for you. It's not like something you've ever seen before. And so our first one's in the LA area. We took over a big Best Buy. It's big. It's 45,000 square feet. It's located next to one of Whole Foods Market's most successful stores in Southern California. I have the advantage of knowing all of Whole Foods' best stores. Yeah. And we think there's a good correlation of customers between the two. So you come in and we have a very healthy restaurant, a healthy cafe available. You can order via kiosk. You can order via the app. And you can get super healthy food, super healthy whole foods, mostly plant-based, but not strictly plant-based. Then we have a state-of-the-art fitness center. So there you can think like Equinox or any really good gym. We also have yoga and Pilates, and we have a variety of classes going on, spin classes, things you could get at a typical fitness center. Then we have also a state-of-the-art spa. So not only in our spa can you get things you get in a typical spa, from massage and different bodywork treatments to facials and wraps and exfoliants and things like that. But we also have these amazing recovery modalities that are connected with the spa. So we have cryotherapy, we have infrared saunas, we have regular saunas, steam bath, we have red light therapy, we have hyperbaric oxygen chambers. We have all cold plunges. We have all these different recovery modalities that help people recover quicker from any type of exercise and basically make people feel good. And probably most important is we have our medical center. We have pickleball courts. That may be the most important thing.
Of course, it's 2024.
Exactly.
Have to have pickleball.
Three pickleball courts, which are really, really good. And we've got sound dampeners in there, so you can't hear it any other place in the.
Oh, that's fun.
And then we have the medical center. So we do have a couple of medical doctors on our team. They're trained and they're medical doctors. They do all the things. They're family practitioners, also trained in functional medicine, integrative medicine, and lifestyle medicine. So it's a choice of the member of whether or not they wish to use that as their primary physician. And I think that is our intention, quite honestly, but it's not a requirement. But you can join Love.Life as a fitness recovery only member. But what we encourage people to do is join as fitness recovery and medical. Then we have a series of tests that we want them to go through. And as I said previously, then we work out a customized plan for each individual. And then we can track them over time and see if we're making progress. And they can see themselves if they're making progress or not. And then you can adjust the plan if it's not making progress. And of course, if we don't make any progress, I expect they'll stop being a member, really. But we also, besides physical health, we really want to help people on an emotional and spiritual level as well. So we do have, besides the yoga and meditation classes, we do breath work. We will have some other emotional counseling opportunities available for people as well that we haven't implemented yet, but we're planning to implement.
And obviously this is going to attract, and I'm sure today is attracting a lot of folks who are already quite motivated and engaged with their health and preventive health. Do you see this also converting people from maybe the unmotivated, unengaged category and inspiring them to be more involved in managing their health?
Yes, that's a great question. I think first, with any new business, you have to meet the market where you find it. And so because what we're doing is different, it's not, I don't know other people that are combining these things all together like we are: food, fitness, recovery, medical, spa, all in one facility. And so there's some people that's like, oh my God, I've been looking for you my entire life. Sign me up.
Easy sell.
Exactly. But then what happens over time is they will sell their friends. They will say, I've been going to Love.Life, and I'm telling you, it's made a huge difference in my life. You need to go check this place out. So they'll become, hopefully, if they'll become our evangelist. And then we also, when we do the testing, we actually are going to encourage people to go down one of our three basic, it'll be individualized, but there's three basic pathways. The first pathway is if they are dealing with some kind of chronic disease. Let's say they are obese, or they have type 2 diabetes, or they have autoimmune diseases, or they have heart disease. These are all diseases that are not only preventable, if you have, for the most part, preventable based on your diet and lifestyle, but if you have them, they are reversible, and we can begin to target people to put them on the heal path so that the truth of the matter is something like type 2 diabetes, which most doctors just prescribe metformin or they prescribe insulin for. That's really that's a reversible disease, usually in 30 to 90 days, if people are willing to make certain changes in their diet and lifestyles. We know that heart disease is also reversible. We know that most of these autoimmune diseases, you don't just can manage the symptoms, but you can begin to, in many cases, depending on how deep that autoimmune disease, how long it's been going on, a lot of times it can be reversed. And so that's the healing path. We also have what we call the longevity path. So if you're an aging baby boomer, or even now an aging Xer, then you're really concerned. You want to be around for your grandchildren. You want to extend your health span, your lifespan.
You probably have some back pain.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We do have chiropractors and physical therapists. I forgot to mention, we have chiropractors, physical therapists, acupuncturists. We have a whole array of different types of treatments people can do to help those sort of chronic conditions. But for some people, it's about longevity and extending their health span. I get that. And then a third category are people that'll be younger that are looking for sort of maximum performance, trying to reach their absolute pinnacle of physical health and fitness. And we have a plan for that as well, or we have a track for that as well for people. So it kind of is somewhat age dependent and where they are in their own health journey in terms of where they will concentrate after we do the testing for them.
Well, there's something nice about having it all under one roof, because if you're someone who's been traditionally unengaged with the healthcare system, and all of a sudden you're facing a health issue and it's catching up with you, it can be daunting to have to kind of run around and figure out all the things that you need. And so having, your physician say, great, like here's your gym, here's your meal plan, here's your healing plan. Having that all kind of there, the convenience of that, you'd imagine, would help someone become more engaged more easily than our current system.
Exactly. Why do people hate going? You ever thought about why people don't like going to the doctor?
Why? They don't like being poked and prodded?
There's a ton of reasons. First of all, they always have to wait.
Yeah.
You go in, and if your appointment's at 10 o'clock, then maybe at 10:30 you go to another room and you wait there 15 or 20 minutes. So maybe the doctor comes in and you see the doctor for like 5 minutes and they write a prescription for you and say, take this for your whatever your symptom or your problem is. Our vision is that you set an appointment up for the doctor, it's going to start on time, A. B, you're going to get a lot more time. You're going to get a lot more of the doctor's, physician's time than you're ordinarily going to get. C, all the data, everything that you have, the doctor, all the notes, it's all going to be on your platform, your app that you can access, that you can decide whether you want your health coach to access it as well. But then you have somebody that cares about you and is working with you. And if you want to have a follow-up, maybe you don't need to see that doctor in person again. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But then we'll have the telehealth option for people that want to just check in and do a 10-minute check-in with their doctor or their wellness coach. So that's one thing. We don't like the waiting. And secondly, we don't like the fact that we have scarcity of time with the doctor. I mean, it's just oftentimes very dissatisfying in terms of, well, you want to feel like somebody's actually caring about you and is there that you can trust. And third, the information that the doctor has, you lose that. I mean, you don't have access to what the testing that they do, the reports that they make. You don't have full consciousness about it. It's sort of monopolized by the current doctor system. Here, it'll be your information. You not only can access it, but if you decide to leave Love.Life, you take it with you, and it's yours. And all the testing, all the different things we've done for you will be in your own records. Yeah. You'll own them.
So with Whole Foods, from what I understand, you didn't do market research. You used your intuition to understand customers and meet them where they are. In this case, are you doing the same, or have you done like studies on what patients want and where there's an unmet need?
That's a good question. I am an entrepreneur, so my research here has been my own experience, and dialogues with hundreds of friends over the years in terms of what they don't like and are not satisfied with. And also, as thinking like an entrepreneur, it's like you start up your business and then you're in dialogue with your members, with your customers, and they tell you what they like and what they don't like. And so you evolve by being close to your customer, close to your member, you can begin to craft it and evolve it in such a way that it better meets their needs. That's a better way than market research, in my opinion, because market research, as Steve Jobs famously said, if I'd done market research on the iPod, people would have said, well, I'd like my CD to hold 30 songs instead of 12 or 14. If you could double the amount of songs, nobody would say, well, I wish I could carry it around in my pocket and it would have all the music I own in my pocket. So market research would not have told him that. Yeah. But as an entrepreneur, he felt like, I'm going to create such an innovation that when people see it, they're going to think, oh my God, yes, of course I want this. But until you actually produce it, the market research will not necessarily tell you what you're looking for. You might say the same thing about any type of disruptive or rule-breaking innovation. People are surprised by it. I will tell you a story, Halle, that for about the first 20 years before Whole Foods brand got better known, when people come into our stores for the first time, they generally had a reaction like, oh my God, I've never been in a store like this before. This is incredible. Everything here is healthy. Look at all this fresh produce, all this, it's this mission-driven business. They had not seen anything like it before, and they got really excited about it. Many did. I think the same thing's true for Love.Life. I've seen people come in, and they go around for the first time, and it's like, wow, how come nobody's done this before? This is a terrific idea. But it also took Whole Foods years to build our brand, so to speak, for people to get to know us, to test it out, to like it, to tell their friends about it. And so I think similar things happening here with Love.Life is that people are enthusiastic that join. They're starting to tell their friends about it. But because it's different, people aren't used to it. But they will convert others. And I'm getting back to one question you asked earlier on. What about the people who need it but don't know they need it? Well, what will happen over time if we just have to take a long-term view on our patient? When people begin to reverse their diseases, when your friend loses 100 pounds, when their type 2 diabetes goes away, when they can get off all their heart medications because they've unclogged their arteries, and they tell their friends about that, that's going to be like, well, You mean I could do that too? And we're going to have something we did at Whole Foods, which we're going to do at Love.Life. We haven't done it yet, but we're going to. We called it total health immersions. By the way, this is another example of market research, you might say. We had a program at Whole Foods where we took this program for about 15 years, and we do it 4 times a year. We would take in different parts of the country. You had to apply for it, but we take our least healthy team members, those who were obese, those who had type diabetes, those who had heart disease, those who had chronic autoimmune diseases, and we would take them in a retreat-like setting for 1 week. In that 1 week, we'd control their food, we'd get them to exercise, they'd have to withdraw temporarily from alcohol and caffeine. The caffeine would be tougher than the alcohol for most people.
Yeah.
But what would happen in that week was kind of extraordinary. Other than some caffeine headaches, they generally lost, if they were obese, they'd usually lose 8 to 10 pounds in that first week. Their blood pressure would oftentimes drop 30 to 40 points as they got off the high salt diet. We often saw their cholesterol drop 30 to 50 points in just the 1 week. And what this taught me was number one is that if you stop poisoning, our bodies are actually pretty resilient. If we stop poisoning them and start nourishing them, they heal quickly. And people that would stay on the program after they left, they never looked back. And I toured the stores, and I'd always get hugs from people saying, "Do you remember me? Do you recognize me? I've lost 125 pounds. And I'm going to have a life with my children and my grandchildren now." So that convinced me.
Would most of them
that
sustain it? Were most of them able to make permanent lifestyle changes?
The answer is no. Most were not able to do it. And hence why Love.Life is important. Because what a learning was from that is that the food addictions are so deep that even when people know, and even when they've had good results, they fall back into the old patterns of the diets they eat. First of all, their friends and families, they don't necessarily want them to succeed. That's the paradoxical thing, because they would have to, if they could succeed, then it would mean, wow, I could succeed too. So they become sort of enablers to fall back in to the old patterns. It's why alcoholics, if you come back to the same group that likes to go out and drink on Saturday nights, even though you've been in rehab, you're probably going to fall back into drinking again. Yeah. Well, we take our food addictions for granted, but they're just as powerful. We are very addicted to processed foods, to calorie-dense foods. It's why America is chronically overweight. And it's not easy to change because most people never try to change. Or we do see people try to go on diets, and they almost 98% of the time they fail. They have to make permanent changes. The best way to do that is to be in a community of people that support you. Love.Life is that community of people.
Yeah. At the top of the show, you talked about how other grocery stores ended up kind of copying Whole Foods. Who do you think is going to copy this? Do you think it'll come from the wellness, like fitness chains that start to offer more healthcare offerings? Or do you think it's going to come from the doctor's offices trying to create more holistic offerings? Or do you think you're going to kind of see copycats on both sides?
I think we'll see all three because the third one is we'll just see other organizations start up from scratch like Love.Life. It's like, well, these guys are successful. Why can't we do that? They're doing this in LA. Why can't we do this in New York? And so that's the amazing thing about capitalism, which people underestimate, is that it's very competitive. Good ideas spread. And Whole Foods had so many different imitators. Not only did conventional supermarkets change over time, but there were lots of other Whole Foods knockoffs that started up all around the country. We ended up acquiring a lot of them, but nevertheless, somebody like Sprouts today, for example, is growing like crazy all over the country. Trader Joe's was another company that inspired Whole Foods, and we inspired them, and as a result, the food universe got bigger and better over time. So I think the same thing's going to happen. We're going to have some fitness centers that are could be an Equinox or a Lifetime Fitness or someone like that that's going to say, let's just do what Love.Life's doing. It'll be easy to just add the doctor component. And then maybe it'll be doctors saying, wow, I want to practice this way. And so they start to do something independently, again, maybe doing with other doctors and creating different kinds of little partnerships that work to do a more complete lifestyle approach rather than just what they've been doing.
Yeah.
So many doctors that I know, Halle, they don't like what they're doing.
No.
The corporate
They
they're
don't.
owned by, they don't enjoy their work any longer. They're pressured to see as many people as possible in a short period of time. And
burnout is high.
Yes.
And they feel like they're not fulfilling what they came to medicine to do. One of my good friends is a cardiologist, and she's like, I just hate that I see them after they get to that point. I wish I could intervene and send them to a nutritionist earlier on in their life, because by the time they reach her, a lot of times these things are irreversible or create lifelong problems.
Yeah, my sister was got a PhD in psychology, and she did a lot of work with children, and that was a burnout job, because she said, John, what I need to be able to do is intervene with the families. But she was working with the school systems, and she could only put Band-Aids on these deep emotional wounds a lot of these children had, and it needed to be a more family type approach. Same thing with healthcare. You need to take a more holistic, comprehensive approach to it than doctors are able to do in the current system, which is why the system needs to change.
Yeah, it does. So in 2009, quite some time ago, you wrote what turned out to be kind of a controversial piece for the Wall Street Journal called The Whole Foods Alternative to Obamacare. And you advocated for less government control of healthcare and more personal responsibility. Where do you stand today on where we have the biggest challenges in healthcare, and if healthcare is overly regulated or underregulated?
Well, one minor correction, that I did write that op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, but I did not put that title on it. They put that title on it.
They always do that.
My title, for the record, was just simply healthcare reform.
Okay.
I wasn't going after Obamacare per se.
Yeah. But
basically, I was trying to share what Whole Foods was doing. We had been doing our total health immersions, and we were having really good initial results with it. We also did some things at Whole Foods which were powerful. We were self-insured, right? So,
okay.
And we found out 10% of our team members were spending 90% of our healthcare dollars.
Wow.
Hence why we wanted to do the win-win-win solution for us was target the ones that are using the most healthcare dollars and help them be healthier. That's going to be good for them, and will cost the company less money.
Yep.
Hence, that's why we started doing the total health immersions.
You became a healthcare company, like
yes.
many self-insured companies do.
That's right.
Yep.
We also, I'm a great believer that incentives matter. So we found 4 metrics that was pretty easy to measure for people. And then we began to reward people that hit these metrics. So those were BMI, whether you smoke or not, have nicotine in your blood pressure, and 4th, total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol. Mm-hmm. So those not expensive to check those things out. So we began to create programs where if you work for the company, you automatically get a 20% discount on everything we sell. But then if you would play in our game, we gamified it. If you play in our game and you could get positive results or lower these 4 areas. If you had any nicotine in your blood, you were disqualified. So really wanted people to stop smoking. Yep. But if you could drop weight, lower your cholesterol, lower your blood pressure, you'd get bigger discounts. And those discount cards became it's since been discontinued, by the way, since I left the company. Retired 2 years ago.
Amazon doesn't like it, huh?
No, not Amazon. I think the Whole Foods people didn't. My executives didn't like it because they weren't getting the discounts because they weren't playing the game. But you could get up to a 30% discount. So 22, 25, 28, and 30% additional discounts depending on your scores. So that was all in that op-ed piece as well, so a truncated version of it. So I just thought, you know what, we need to deal with the problems of chronic disease at the root of the diet and lifestyle, incentivizing people to make behavior changes, put them through programs where they can be educated and get a taste of what it feels like to be healthier. That was my alternative. So guess what? That was 2009. Now it's 2024. I'm putting what I said in that op-ed into practice.
Yeah, well, I like what you said. You said the best solution is not to need health care. And I think that's absolutely right.
We have a sick
care system, and
it's right. Halle, the doctor's job is so that you don't need to see a doctor.
Yeah. Yep. No, exactly. I mean, it's interesting that the largest expense behind wages for most companies in the U.S. is healthcare, yet it's something that they're managing as a cost versus managing as something that can change people's lives?
Yeah, I think the challenge that corporations have, so I'll give you another perspective on it, though, is that there's an assumption if you're going to make an investment in changing somebody's, it's same investment in training people, or you make an investment in improving their health. The assumption is that you'll get that the company's making an investment, they'll get a payback over a longer period of time. But if you have high turnover, if people are not sticking around, then you're less incentivized to make the investment. It's like
you're not going to realize the returns. So.
That's right. So we now live in a society that, particularly ever since COVID, has gotten even worse because of the ability for people to work remotely. But that also, there's less loyalty as a result. So I think turnover rates are higher than they used to be. So unfortunately, corporations are sometimes not incentivized to make those investments because they're not going to see the returns they need.
But perhaps slightly more incentivized than a commercial health plan, because a commercial health plan is certainly going to, see turnover every 2 to 3 years and really just want that ROI in that short period of time. Whereas an employer, at least there are kind of some short-term productivity gains they might see from making these sort of investments.
So I agree. And one of the Love.Life, again, we haven't implemented this. We're less than a month open at this point, but one of our plans to start up in the next year is sort of a B2B practice. We do want to go to companies that are self-insured and say, listen, give us your sick people. The ones that have these chronic diseases. We know 10% of your people are spending 90% of your healthcare bills. Let's give them Love.Life memberships. Let's put them in we can set up specialized plans for your sickest people or your people that are costing you the most money. And let's do a pilot. Give us 20 people. We'll show you what we can do in the next 6 months. And then if that works, then we can have a deeper relationship with you. We can also provide it sort of an executive perk to have a membership at Love.Life that takes care of the executives. I mean, think about it. You pay these executives huge amounts of money primarily to make good decisions. But if they don't feel well, if they're sick, if they are not at their tip-top peak condition, they don't make as good of decisions. And so it'll also be a way to, if you have a Love.Life membership, it'll create a little more stickiness for your executives to want to move on as well. So we think there's a B2B possibility to our business.
Absolutely. And do you imagine kind of creating the business model as a fee for service, or do you think you'll go towards a value-based care system where they're paying a flat fee for you to help keep them healthy and meet the goals?
I think we'll experiment with both. This is a great example of testing your ideas out in the marketplace and see what the market wants. I like the fee for services. That's consistent with our membership program as well. But then again, we can take people on a temporary basis to try to reverse a disease and then hey, done. Although we're going to pitch the employer at that point to, it's like, hey, do you really want to pull Tom out of the program? He's reversed his disease. We can keep him that way. He'll have less recidivism if he stays with us. Remember how I started out with those total health immersions? That's something Love.Life's going to do as well. I mean, this way we can have sort of a national approach, even with just the one location, because we could bring people in for executive weekend or a week or 2 weeks to do sort of a health tune-up or a complete because we can do all the testing right there, then and there at Love.Life. So we can get the test results back. We can put them on programs. They can see a lot of progress quickly. And then because we have a telehealth business that we're licensed in all 50 states, they can stay in touch with Love.Life through our telehealth doctors.
So let's say it's September 2026, 2 years from now, we have you back on the show. What's the footprint of this? Is this something that every major city has a Love.Life facility? What's the scale in 2 years?
The scale in 2 years is hopefully we'll have a second one getting ready to open.
Okay.
I mean, here's the reality of here's an interesting statistic about Whole Foods. Love.Life will hopefully be faster, but when Whole Foods went public in 1992, we'd been open really 14 years since 1978. We'd gone from 1 store to 12 stores in 14 years. When I retired 2 years ago, we were at 540 stores. And now they're opening up 30, 40 stores a year on an ongoing basis. So the compounding starts relatively slowly. But then then it begins to compound quicker. Now, if Love.Life can prove itself to be a huge financial success, we'll be able to scale it quicker because nobody had heard of me, and I'd had no track record. But here, so in 2 years, really getting a second store open, I think will be a good accomplishment. In 10 years, maybe I hope to have 15 or 20 locations. But then in 20 years, maybe we have 100. In 30 years, maybe we have 500. So, or even 1,000. So it depends on how the idea works. Because right now, capital would be a limitation.
Are you self-funding?
I own about 60% of the business. I have friends and family, you might say, for the other 40% right now.
Okay. I heard you call venture capitalists hitchhikers with credit cards. So I wasn't sure if you were going to take their money or not.
Well, yes, I'm going to take their money. And I don't mind having hitchhikers in the car. What's
you were a hitchhiker yourself.
That's right. What's different this time is that I was so young and so poor that I couldn't, once the hitchhikers got in the car, I didn't have really control of the car any longer. When the hitchhikers get into this car, I'm still going to own a majority of the company. So I have the money to continue to invest as well. Yeah. So they'll come into the car. I'm going to get them to where they want to get to, which is an IPO. But they can't. I'm not going to allow them even the possibility of hijacking the car and throwing me out on the side of the road.
Is that a piece of advice that you'd share with other founders? Or do you think
share it with founders all the time. I always share the hitchhiking metaphor. I also point out to them, don't give them control of your business. They're going to want to hire, if you're an entrepreneur, they're going to want to bring a professional manager in with more experience, probably has an MBA from Harvard, Wharton, or Stanford. And because most VCs think the entrepreneurs aren't there for the long term. But most of the entrepreneurs I talk to, some of them just want to make money quick and sell it. But most of them, they have a longer term vision that they don't get to realize because the hitchhikers hijack the car and they're just out. I've seen it happen again and again and again and again. Just the main thing is that VCs have a different goal than the founder has. The VCs, they're getting into the car, but they have a certain destination. They need to get to that destination no later than 7 years down the road. Generally, 5 to 7 years is all they want to have their money tied up in your business. And sometimes that's just not a long enough time horizon. And that means they put pressure to scale quicker so they can get out quicker.
Oh, for sure.
And oftentimes the founder or the entrepreneur is better off going a little bit slower, maintaining more control, not trying, because the VCs, they need blockbusters. They need the Ubers. They need the Amazons. They need the Teslas. Those are the opportunities that they can make huge amounts of money. If they have a blockbuster, that'll pay for lots of failures, lots of ones that failed to launch, so to speak. But hey, they just wrecked the entrepreneur's business by trying to scale it prematurely when they weren't ready to do that. So as long as the entrepreneur is aware that the VCs are not completely aligned with what they want to accomplish in the long term, they can take precautions to protect themselves.
Yeah. Great points. So one last question that I like to close every episode with, which is if you could wave a magic wand and instantly change one thing about our healthcare system, what would it be?
If I could have a magic wand and change one thing about it, just one thing, right?
One thing, yeah.
I would change the doctor's education to be less an emphasis on pharmaceutical drugs and more of an emphasis on nutrition and lifestyle. Mm-hmm.
Do they get an hour of nutrition? I've heard very little. I've
heard it's not very much, just a few hours of talking about that. And generally it's de-emphasized. And all the continuing education programs are generally that they need to keep up with are mostly pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies that are funding those medical continuing education programs, and they don't have an incentive to. The pharmaceutical industries and the medical devices incentives are really not to cure people, just to deal with symptoms and keep them coming back. Yeah. Or as one of my favorite doctors once told me, he said, "John, I have one problem with my medical practice." And I said, "What's that?" He says, "All my patients get well and they don't see me anymore."
Yeah.
they don't have repeat business if you're doing your job right.
Yeah.
So that's not your best business model, right?
Yeah. The incentives need to align.
The incentives are not well aligned.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for being here today.
Halle, I've enjoyed our conversation. I wish you the very best in all ways. And come visit Love.Life sometime.
Yes, we'd love to.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of Healthcare. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please leave a rating and review. And don't forget to subscribe. The Heart of Healthcare is produced by Halle Tecco and hosted by Michael Esquivel, Steve Krause, and Halle Tecco. The show is engineered, edited, and mixed by Kyle Moore. Visit our website, heartofhealthcarepodcast.com, for show notes and details.